Welcome all to another episode of Bluecorp Techbytes. On this episode of Bluecorp Techbytes, we have Mr. Doubi Ajami joining us from Brussels, Belgium. Now, Doubi is the founder of several successful companies, including ABSI, the first Salesforce partner in the Benelux region, which was later acquired by PwC. And the other company is ABSI, which is a visionary system integration and managed services provider in Belgium. Now, Doubi has started a very new journey on cryptocurrency and blockchain, and that is what brings us together today. Doubi is not a stranger to us, and he has a very close relationship with Bluecorp for over a decade. Welcome to Bluecorp Techbytes, Doubi.
Hello, Shihab. Thank you for inviting me, and I'm very happy to be able to try to answer some of your questions.
It's a pleasure to have you as well, Doubi. To start off the discussion, what are your thoughts about the future of blockchain technology beyond cryptocurrency?
I'll start by saying that the word cryptocurrencies is not the word I would like to use. I prefer to use digital assets, which has a better meaning than crypto and currencies. And in order to understand why those digital assets are so important and why blockchain is intimately related to those digital assets, and one enable the other, you cannot have a blockchain without having digital assets, and the digital assets would not exist if there was no blockchain. To fully understand what it means, let me first tell you that the digital assets are a revolution that is as big as the internet 25 or 30 years ago. I make a parallel with the internet. When the internet started, it started with what we all know, the HTML pages and the hyperlink allowing you to move from one page to the other. This was called the Web 1.0. The Web 1.0 is basically static pages, and where basically a user can only consume content. It was very difficult to create new content. Then we moved to Web 2.0, that is the web that we know today, which is a web that is dynamic, where you have a very good user experience, where you have the social media, where you have the e-commerce, where basically this Web 2.0 allowed companies like Bluecorp to grow and to flourish and to deliver services to companies using those technologies. It's the web where you can create application on the web and not anymore on your desktop application. But this web is dominated by some large companies. We all know them, the Google, the Facebook, and the Amazon, and others. Now, in this world, everything is free or seems free. But because it's free in this Web 2.0, our data, ourselves, we are the content, and we are basically the products. And it's creating a lot of frustration from a lot of users, because from a world that we thought to be free, full of freedom with Web 1.0, we moved to a web that is dominated, where you have a lot of advertisement, and where you basically, we are missing the point of what you wanted to create. Those mega companies are really taking advantage of us and selling our as. We are in a centralized world with a lot of surveillance and exploitive, and they exploit advertisement. And we've heard about all the scandals recently. We don't have anymore any privacy. Now we are today at the eve of Web 3.0, which is basically enabled by this blockchain, by this decentralized technology. And this world is promising a lot of different things. It will allow us to avoid basically the central authority. It will allow us to avoid the central control and the single point of view that can exist. We all have seen a few weeks ago, or maybe last week, when Facebook was down, with WhatsApp being down, with Instagram being down for a few hours, and everyone was lost. Now, the blockchain technology and the crypto assets allow basically this back to our ownership and compensation for the people. And this is right now maturing. And there are a lot of examples that I can give you explaining what is blockchain and Web 3.0 today and what are the benefits it can bring us.
Thank you, Doubi. So now, Doubi, you spoke about Web 3.0 and what it promises sounds very interesting. So would you be able to share with us a few examples of Web 3.0?
I will take some examples that are IT related and not finance related or not supply chain related or not social media related, because the Web 3.0 offers possibilities in all those fields. The first example that came to my mind is the browser, not the Chrome browser, but the Brave browser. The Brave browser is a browser that is Chrome compatible, that exists in multiple versions, including a mobile version, a version for Mac OS, a version for the Linux, or for Windows. And the tagline of this browser is Brave stops online surveillance, loads content faster, and use less battery when you speak in a mobile environment. Now, this browser allows me as a consumer to be paid when I'm looking at advertisements. And it allows me also as a consumer, if I want to compensate an author of a content, also to give him some compensation. So I'm going to have two aspects. If people want to give me information, if I'm interested, I'm being paid to see this advertisement. This payment is done through a cryptocurrency, to a token that is related to this Brave browser. It's called the Basic Attention Token, which is a token that I can buy with euro or with dollars, and that I can then use to pay content provider, or that the browser will, or the advertisement company will pay to me, will give me as a compensation to my attention when I am going to look at their advertisement. A second example is storage. We all know about Dropbox. We all know about Amazon S3. Those two technologies allow me to buy some centralized cloud storage. Now imagine that you have a possibility to access a decentralized storage, and it's also not centralized, it's distributed. A decentralized distributed storage. Basically, every single person that has some storage on his PC or in his data center can say, I want to give this storage to allow other users to use it. The blockchain technology will allow to create an algorithm to use this storage and to give it to people that need this storage. So I don't want to go anymore with a centralized company like Amazon, but I can go with those enterprises. And one example is storage. And you can see the link and the details at the bottom of this video or of this interview. And you check for yourself what is storage. And storage is also its own currency, which is called the storage. That on one hand, we compensate people giving their storage because it's a distributed system. And on the other hand, it will also allow you to be paid if you put your storage in place, or you pay if you are going to use this storage. I hope those two examples illustrate what I mean, but you have a lot of other examples of decentralized applications that are possible thanks to the blockchain and thanks to the what we call Web 3.0.
Thank you for those examples, Doubi. Now, as for my next question, we see today many mushroom crypto technologies on the rise. Now, how could someone trust a platform which is not standardized and very fragmented?
Okay, I understand your question, but I think in order to answer it and to answer this, how can we trust this? I would like to make one step backwards. And I'd like to explain in plain word, what is the blockchain? In order to do it, I will take an example and I'm going to try to show what I mean. So I'm going to basically, I created multiple blocks. in order to explain what is really a blockchain. So I'm going to make here to show a few blockchains. Let me put them in the right order. So basically, the blockchain is a succession of blocks, and every block is created every 10 minutes. So you need to imagine that you have one computer here, and on this computer, for the moment, only 2 blocks, like on this one, like on this one. And within 10 minutes, a new block will be created. Now, let's suppose that I want to give you 1 Bitcoin. And you, Shihab, you say, oh, great, I would like to have 1 Bitcoin. So I'm going to take a paper and to write on it a transaction. I am giving 1 Bitcoin that I have to Shihab. And I'm going to put this transaction in a box, in a block. Now, there will be other transaction, and basically all the transaction, and a block can contain up to a certain number of transactions. They will go within this block. And when this block is added, which is every 10 minutes in the case of the Bitcoin blockchain, which is basically a network, then this block will say, okay, Doubi is giving 1 Bitcoin to Shihab. It is a transaction, and within a block, multiple transactions are registered. Now, how do you add a block? A block is added by miners, so people that are going to resolve a puzzle, and they are also at the same time going to check, are we sure that Doubi has this Bitcoin is going to give to Shihab? And they are going to check in the previous blocks if I had at some point received or created 1 Bitcoin. They will also ensure they are not going to give the 1 Bitcoin simultaneously to Shihab and to Emmanuel. If I give it to both of them, then I'm doing something called double spend. And the double spend is something that we need absolutely to avoid. Now, what's more, when this block is created, it's created by the computer that will resolve the puzzle, which is a cryptographic challenge. When he is resolving it, all the other nodes, they can be mining nodes or simply information nodes, are going to get this new block. Now, let's say that later on, in the next block, I want to give the same Bitcoin to someone else. They will say, oh, no, we don't have it anymore. And this proof exists on multiple computers. Now, this is basically the key element within the blockchain technology. And I give the example of the Bitcoin. Now, let's say that I would like to put within a block this pen. Now, this pen cannot go in the block, okay? Because I want to give this pen to Shihab. Now, I can take a digital image of this pen, be put within, the pen will stay in the real world, my identity will be digital, and I can transfer it from one person to the other. Now, to fully understand what are the benefits of the blockchain is something that is permissionless, meaning anyone can access it, and without needing to ask the permission from anyone. Second thing, the technology is open source. So everyone can read the code, you can check it for yourself, and if you want, you can even improve it, okay? You can build on it. Third point, it's a global network. So the network can be accessed from everywhere by anyone. It's composable, meaning whatever you create can be used by someone else. And this is the beauty of the blockchain, where you can create applications leveraging somebody else's applications. It is also transparent, so everyone can know what are the transactions that happened in the past. Last but not least, decentralized, so you have hundreds, in some cases thousands of computers that contain the same information. And finally, it's trustless, meaning you don't need to have anyone, any third party that you need to trust to ensure the transaction is taking place. When I am paying Shihab, I'm not going through a bank. I'm making the transfer from myself to Shihab, and it's the blockchain that is ensuring that Shihab and myself can have trust. In other cases, when I'm going to pay something to someone, I need to go through a bank that is a trust party that say, okay, Doubi has the money and is going to give it to Shihab. And Shihab can trust the bank that he will get the money. In this case, it's the blockchain that is basically the central point. I hope this clarifies a little bit more the concept. And to come back to your question, everything is built on this same technology. So even it is fragmented, it is using the same element, and the different elements I mentioned, like permissionless, open source, decentralized, and trustless, are the elements that can allow you to trust this platform to build something on top of it.
Thank you for that wonderful explanation, Doubi. Now, Doubi, in a recent University of Cambridge study, it quotes that the global Bitcoin network consumes about 80 terawatt hours of electricity, I think, per year. Now, that I think is roughly equal to the power consumption of Finland. Now, do you think there are any foreseeable solutions to this ever-growing problem?
Energy consumption is a very pertinent question. But we all know that when I am also having a frigidaire and I want to keep my food for next day or for next week, I need to consume electricity in order to conserve the food. If I will not put it in the frigidaire or in the freezer, it will deteriorate and be lost within a few hours or a few days, depending on when I leave. Now, as long as you think that the energy consumed for the Bitcoin is for nothing, then your question is legitimate. I'm really consuming energy for nothing. But if the energy I'm consuming is meant to build something that has a bigger value, then maybe it's worthwhile to consume this energy. Again, the energy consumed can be also a green energy. It can be an energy that comes from waterfalls. It can be energy that comes from wind. It can be energy that comes from another resource. It does not have to be energy coming from coal or polluting the world. It can be energy, a clean energy. Now, what we have to understand in order to understand what I want to explain, understand what I mean, is that indeed this energy is huge, but this is how we are creating value within the Bitcoin. And the Bitcoin is working on something called proof of work. The algorithm that was created is built in a such way that you need to resolve a very complex puzzle. This puzzle is getting every day more and more complicated. And the more computers are trying to resolve the puzzle, the more complicated it is. And in order to resolve this puzzle, it requires a lot of energy. This energy is going to be consumed, but the reward for the one that will resolve the puzzle will be today about 6.5 Bitcoins. And I take the name of the Bitcoin. He needs to prove that he resolved it by spending energy and by having a very powerful computer with some ASIC specialized in resolving those puzzles. Now, if you look at you as a human being, or at me, when I'm young, I'm full of energy. I'm going to work and to put some energy aside in the form of money, so that when I'll be older, when I'll become with less energy, because this is the way the world is done, this is the way how human being is done, then I can basically have enough money, something called in countries pension that some states are giving you, to allow me to be able to pay with this money younger people that has energy in order to allow me to continue living for a few more years. In Bitcoin, exactly the same thing. Now, this problem of the proof of work is being addressed on one hand with new blockchains that will not use proof of work, but will use something called proof of stake. And I'm not going to dive in it, but anyone can look at it, and basically the proof of stake is consuming much less energy than the proof of work. And if we want to have a decentralized system, you need to compensate the owner of the nodes in a certain way. And you can basically say that the new block will be created depending on who has more assets or more cryptocurrencies. And this is the way of proof of stake that is running versus proof of work, where you need to basically spend energy to do it. Now, it's a big discussion, but I think slowly, we are moving in the direction where the blockchain will consume less energy. I hope this covered partially the question you asked.
So Doubi, as my final question for you today, I'd like to ask you, for anyone thinking to innovate new products and services using blockchain, do you think it's already too late for them to start now?
So I don't think it's late at all. I think the blockchain is still in its early days. And you were learning HTML back in 1994 or 1993. People said, okay, everything is invented, it's done, it's maybe too late. It was just the beginning. I think the blockchain is in its early days, very early days, and the journey is still very long. And the number of applications that will develop, people cannot even imagine what they are.
Thank you, Doubi. So that brings us to the end of our session. It was a pleasure to have you at Bluecorp Techbytes. And if there's anyone who would like to reach out to Doubi and talk to him more about blockchain, you could always reach out to him on LinkedIn. And see you at the next episode of Bluecorp Techbytes. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It was my pleasure. And let's keep the conversation open.